Deep in the forests, across quiet rivers and under moonlit skies, people have encountered something that defies explanation. Towering figures, guttural howls, and signs of a presence just beyond the edge of light. These unique and true Bigfoot encounters, sourced and adapted from first-hand reports on BFRO, offer a chilling glimpse into the unknown. Each account comes from individuals who didn't go looking for a legend, but found one anyway. Encounter 1: Campfire, stalked by unseen presence near Siler City, submitted by witness Andrew Elmore Jr. on Thursday, November 28, 2024. Date of encounter, November 2012. Location, Mount Vernon Hickory Mountain Road, Chatham County, North Carolina. Time between 9 p.m. and 12 a.m. This happened back in the fall of 2012 when I was living near Siler City, North Carolina. We were on a property located at 2298 Mount Vernon Hickory Mountain Road, out in the more remote parts of Chatham County. It was a cold night sometime in November, and my dad and I were out at the back of the property burning brush near an old tobacco barn. It started off as a normal night. The fire was going strong and we were finishing up clearing the area. But as the sky grew darker and the stars started to fade behind thick clouds, the woods behind us started to feel different, heavier. That's when we heard it, this low, steady breathing, almost like grunts. It wasn't close, but it wasn't far either. It came from somewhere just beyond the tree line, hidden in the thick pine forest behind us. At first I thought maybe it was an animal, maybe a deer. But every time one of us turned around to look for the source, the sound would stop. Then once we turned back toward the fire, it would start again. Encounter 2: Deer hunter witnesses upright creature near Butler Knob. Submitted by witness on Saturday, February 12, 2005. Date of encounter, November 18, 1971 or 72. Location: ridge near Butler Knob, Cleveland County, North Carolina. Time: early morning. This sighting wasn't mine personally. It was my father's. But he told it to my brother and me when we were old enough to understand. He wasn't someone to exaggerate, and he didn't even know what a Bigfoot was at the time. In fact, it wasn't until years later, after my brother and I had started reading books about Sasquatch, that we realized what he might have seen. It happened sometime in the early 70s, either 1971 or 72, while my dad was deer hunting in an extremely remote area near Butler Knob in Cleveland County, North Carolina. Even today, that stretch of land is hard to access, all ridges and thick forest. Back then, it was pure wilderness. He was up on a high ridge early in the morning when he spotted movement on a ridge across from him. At first, he thought it was a bear, big and dark. But then he kept watching. Whatever it wasn't moving like a bear, it was walking upright. He watched it for 3 or 4 minutes as it made its way along the ridgeline. It wasn't stumbling or hunching over like a bear might if it stood on its hind legs. It was walking purposefully, stride after stride, like a man, but bigger, smoother. Then it stopped near a tree, and to his surprise it started messing with the limbs, swaying or tugging them, almost like it was testing something or looking for food. After that, it turned and walked over the far ridge and disappeared from view. My father never saw it again, and he never went back to hunt in that spot. Encounter 3: Tall figure races past kitchen window near Kings Mountain, submitted by witness on Friday, August 18, 2006. Date of encounter, August 2006, exact day Thursday. Location: near Benton Road, Cleveland County, North Carolina. Time: 8:30 p.m. It was a Thursday evening just after 8:30 p.m. and I was inside the house when I heard my wife yell from the kitchen, "What the hell was that?" She'd been at the sink washing her hands, looking out the kitchen window into the yard. The sun had just dipped below the horizon and our security light was on, casting a soft glow over the front yard. She was shaken, not panicked, but definitely startled. She said something big and dark had just run past the window no more than 15 feet from the house. Whatever it was, it moved so fast she couldn't get a clear look at it, but she swore up and down that it wasn't human. It was too tall. So tall, in fact, that she could see both its head and shoulders from the kitchen window, and our window's at least 10 feet from the ground. Later that evening, I went outside to feed our dogs, and that's when I noticed something strange. There was a sapling, about 20 to 30 feet tall with 2 main trunks, just on the edge of our yard. One of the trunks had been bent over and the other snapped clean off about 3 feet from the ground. I'd seen odd things like that deeper in the wooded area behind our house before, trees bent or broken in unnatural ways, but never this close to the house. I hadn't thought much of it until now. What really spooked us is what had happened a few nights earlier. We'd both been woken up by a loud shriek outside, right near the front window. When we checked the bushes outside the next morning, they looked flattened, like something had been laying or hiding there. The plants were swirled and pressed down in a circular shape, like a nest. I've read a few reports of sightings in this area. The Kings Mountain region has a long history of strange encounters. But it's different when it happens to you. My wife still swears by what she saw. Whatever it was that sprinted past our house, it wasn't any kind of animal we're used to, and it wasn't human. Encounter 4. Possible nest and strange remains found near the Sandy River. Submitted by witness on Saturday, November 12, 2005. Date of encounter: summer 1970, exact date forgotten. Location: meadow east of Sandy River, Multnomah County, Oregon. Time: early afternoon. It was the summer of 1970, and I had just returned to Oregon after serving a 2-year tour in the Israeli army as a border guard following the '67 war. Back home, I kept up with my shooting skills, often heading into the wilds along the Sandy River, a rugged, beautiful stretch of water that runs west from Mount Hood, through the communities of Welch's, Brightwood, and Sandy, before turning north to meet the Columbia River near Troutdale. One afternoon I drove out to explore a new spot to target shoot. I found myself in a meadow, east of the river, a bit elevated and parallel to the flow of the water. The setting was classic Pacific Northwest, towering wet green trees, shaded gravel bars, and that unmistakable sense of stillness you get when you're far from the road. But as I stepped into the clearing, something immediately felt off. In the middle of that meadow, I came across a cluster of birch saplings, about 4.5 inches thick, snapped clean at about 6 feet high. Their tops had been arranged into what looked unmistakably like a nest or bedding area. It was large enough for 3 or 4 people to curl up in. The branches were woven and layered with purpose. It didn't look like storm damage or animal nesting. It looked constructed. And then I smelled it. Death. Not far from the nest, maybe 20 yards, was a pile of dead rabbits. I counted at least 6 or 7. They had all been cleanly gutted. Not torn apart, not chewed on. Just split open down the belly. Their entrails missing. No teeth marks, no blood smeared. Just clean cuts. The bodies left in a strange, neat pile. The woods were dead silent. Not a bird, not a bug. Nothing. For a summer afternoon, the stillness was unnatural. I remember the hair standing up on the back of my neck. I'd seen plenty during my time in the military, but this felt like something watching. Something I couldn't see. I left immediately and made my way to the nearest forest ranger station. I wasn't sure how they'd take it, but one of the rangers believed me. He even came back with me to the site, camera in hand. He took photos and confirmed what I saw. Whatever made that nest and left those rabbits wasn't anything he'd seen before either. From that day on, both of us, a soldier and a ranger, became believers. Not because of a sighting, but because of what we found. Because of what we felt out there in that meadow. Encounter 5: multiple Bigfoot encounters while living at Portland JobCore. Submitted by witness on Friday, January 16, 2004. Date of encounters: fall 1979, winter 1980. Location: Portland JobCore camp near Sandy River, Multnomah County, Oregon. Time: various, afternoon, evening, and night. Back in the fall of 1979, I was living and working at the Portland JobCore camp, which sat about 4.5 miles up the Sandy River from Troutdale, Oregon. The camp was nestled in heavy woods, with a well-known dragon sculpture at the gate, built by one of the students. The camp backed right up into the wilderness, rugged, misty, and alive with secrets. We students had our own way of exploring it. We'd cut holes in the fence and venture off into the forest, following trails that led to a place called the Falls, a half-mile hike or so, where a lot of us would party or hang out. Along that trail, one of my friends, Jim Hinckley, a native guy and an all-around likable person, helped build a sort of lean-to shelter. Just a simple setup, poles lashed to trees, a plastic tarp over top to keep the rain off. It was nothing special, but it became a regular hangout for 2 or 3 weeks. Then one afternoon, Jim came into the welding shop, visibly rattled. He told me the shack had been wrecked. After class, I followed him out to the spot, and he wasn't exaggerating. The structure was completely destroyed. The poles forming the roof had been snapped clean in half. Not torn, not worn, but snapped like toothpicks. I had hung from those beams myself. They were strong. Metal chairs and even a heavy table had been broken in the middle. Around the trees were tufts of reddish hair, about 3 inches long. No one collected it, sadly. But the worst part was the smell. Something reeked. It was a heavy, musky, almost rotting stench. And worse than the smell was the feeling, like we weren't alone, like something had just left, or was still watching. That was in late summer, maybe August or September. The next incident came in October or November. A group of us, maybe 8 to 12 kids, were partying out behind the football field under a full moon. Fog was rolling fast and low across the grass, and the night was cold but beautiful. We were all laughing, carrying on, when suddenly, the whole group went dead silent, like a switch had flipped. We all just knew something was off. Through the fog, about 30 to 50 yards away, we saw the silhouette of something massive, a biped. Too big to be human, too muscular, and moving with intent. The moon was behind it, and the fog gave us only moments of visibility. It would fade in and out, but every glimpse told us the same thing. This wasn't a person. Martin, an Alaska native standing beside me, whispered, "What is that?" Then said, "Let's go see what it is." I agreed, and we started moving toward it while some of the girls screamed and ran back toward camp. As we approached, the weirdest thing happened. About 100 feet forward, my body stopped moving. I couldn't go any farther, not because I was scared, but because I physically couldn't. It was like I hit an invisible wall. I turned to look for Martin and he had stopped too. As the fog cleared, the figure was still there, just standing and watching, and then, it was gone. Just like that, into the fog. The whole thing couldn't have lasted more than 2 minutes, but it's burned into my memory like it happened yesterday. The third encounter came that winter, during a brutal snowstorm. The camp was snowed in, and we hadn't had outside contact in a couple of days. I was dorm leader at the time, and around 7 to 9 p.m. 2 students came bursting through the back door, pale, shaken, moving fast. I asked them what happened, but one said nothing, and the other kept repeating, "Something's out there." They'd been smoking out on the football field when they saw something that scared them stiff. Rocky, one of the boys, wouldn't even speak. The other kept insisting they'd seen something big. I thought they were just being dramatic, so I grabbed my coat and boots and went out into the snow myself. The snow was waist deep, and I'm 6'2". No animal would be wandering in that. I trudged across the field heading for the edge where the old FBI training stations were, remnants from when the camp had another purpose. As I got close, I felt it again. That invisible barrier. I couldn't go forward, not even if I tried. It wasn't fear, it was something else. I kept being drawn to this one big clump of blackberry bushes just below the sit-up station. There was nothing I could see, but everything in me told me something was there. When I backed up, the feeling faded. When I stepped forward, it slammed back into me. I stayed out there alone in the snow for a while, testing it. No one from the dorm would join me, they all thought I was nuts. Eventually, I went back inside. All these years later, I still remember the line I couldn't cross. In both the second and third incidents. I've wondered if it was something like infrasound, like what tigers and elephants use to freeze prey. I don't know. But whatever it was, it worked. If these stories sent a shiver down your spine or made you glance twice at the tree line, you're not alone. For more eerie true encounters and unexplained phenomena, please like, share, and subscribe to keep the stories and the search alive.